What terrifying creature was in the shaking iron bucket? It took 2 strong men to lift it. The sheriff carefully opened the lid and asked the professor what it was. Shocked, the professor quickly asked where they had found it. The man nervously explained it was caught from the town lake, costing 2 lives. The professor then poured the bucket's contents into a fish tank. A strange-looking fish appeared before everyone. Most frightening were its mouth full of sharp teeth, clearly not a friendly fish. The assistant suspected a lab escape, but the professor disagreed, noting its fossil-like appearance. To test his theory, he extended his finger into the tank. The professor confirmed it was a megalodon, an ancient man-eating fish 10 times stronger than modern piranhas. Its senses are incredibly keen, detecting any water movement. Blood scent drives it into a frenzy. Luckily they caught it, or it would have destroyed the lake's ecosystem. The man paled, revealing thousands more in the lake, chilling the professor. Logically, this species should have gone extinct millennia ago. So how? The lake bottom cracked, creating a whirlpool. A trapped angler desperately tried to escape, when suddenly, hungry megalodons erupted, devouring him instantly. Police searched after receiving reports. Finally, they found the fisherman's boat on a secluded riverbank. The sheriff tried to pull the wooden boat ashore, but the bridge suddenly collapsed, causing the sheriff to fall into the water. Just as he struggled to get ashore, the old black man seemed to notice something strange. The man was indeed the missing fisherman, and the two worked together to bring the body ashore. However, the so-called body was nothing more than a skeleton. They were puzzled about what had happened to the fisherman. The autopsy report would take 2 weeks, but the town was about to hold its annual spring break celebration the next day, which would bring in tens of thousands of young men and women. They had to check for any potential risks beforehand to ensure the event went smoothly. Consequently, the sheriff took his exploration equipment and 3 assistants and sped to the middle of Lake Victoria to conduct an investigation. The instruments actually scanned a never-before-seen crack. They quickly reached the location of the crack, and at 200 meters below it, they found a cave with a seemingly bottomless valley. For safety, they decided to divide the work. One of them would enter the cave to explore, while the other would stay at the entrance. Their only method of contact was a safety rope around their waists. The team member soon reached the cave's bottom, and the sight before him was astonishing. There were pillars everywhere, unlike anything he had seen before, with a faint dust light still flickering above them. He moved forward to take a closer look at what exactly it was. Thin streams of blood seeped out, and his finger had also been bitten, leaving a large hole. The dim light prevented him from seeing clearly what caused it, so he pulled out a burning stick. The police officers outside were anxiously waiting, but saw the incredibly durable safety rope suddenly snap. Worried for his teammates' safety, he didn't think much before springing into action, but the sight that met his eyes was horrifying. Before he could react, a school of piranhas was already rushing towards him. The officer immediately turned and ran for his life, but he couldn't shake off the famished piranhas. Meanwhile, his companion on the boat also realized something was amiss. He quickly changed his clothes and went down to save him. Upon finding his teammate, he had no time to think and grabbed the other man's collar and swam towards the lake. When he finally climbed aboard, he found his rescued teammate bloodied and mangled, with only a skeleton below the waist. Nearby lay a piranha that had been brought up. The sheriff took this deadly fish to the professor, who revealed it was from ancient times. Trapped in the lake for ages, they'd eaten everything but rocks in their cave, even resorting to cannibalism to survive. Now, these piranhas are even more vicious and bloodthirsty. The sheriff grew worried, as today marked the town's spring festival, with countless youths celebrating on the water. He rushed to the scene, demanding everyone return to shore, but the crowd was too loud. No one listened. Some even mocked him. Desperate, he fired a warning shot. This got their attention. Using a megaphone, he again ordered everyone out of the water. But upon realizing it was the sheriff, they jeered, cranked up the music, and defiantly jumped in. Their reckless behavior would soon be punished. Unknown to all, thousands of starving piranhas had entered the waters, ready to start their own feast. A woman first sensed something was wrong. She felt something strange tugging at her. Several piranhas dragged her into the water. The lake instantly turned red. A man tried to help, but more piranhas swarmed, attacking her viciously. People finally realized the danger and desperately tried to swim ashore. Chaos erupted as the water quickly turned red. Terrified screams filled the air everywhere. Fopole frantically pulled people onto boats, the fast swimmers barely escaping. The slow swimmers became prey. Once caught by piranhas, it took minutes to reduce them to bare bones. Hundreds climbed nearby stages, some even scaling scaffolding, thinking higher meant safer. But as more people piled on, the stage is tilted, dropping survivors back into the water. The water churned with thrashing and screams. Fopole and his team rushed to help. Panicked, he jumped into a motorboat, speeding to rescue the fallen. But even at full throttle, he saved only a handful. Lao Hei pulled injured tourists from the water. Mangled by piranhas, almost no one reached shore unscathed. Even one Fopole lost his left leg in just a minute. To protect tourists coming ashore, Lao Hei fought in the water, but against schools of piranhas, he stood little chance. He looked around, then rushed to the yacht, removed the propeller at the back, and put it in the water and stirred. Non-stop, this trick really worked. Countless piranhas were stirred into pieces. The surface of the lake instantly turned black and red. But the smell of blood also attracted more piranhas, although it still looks very vigorous. In fact, the next plate has gradually turned red, finally slowly sinking into the river in the water. Watching his companions suffer miserably to save everyone, Jing Yuan's heart was extremely sad. But fortunately, Lao Hei had just bought time for everyone. Nearly half of them finally escaped, but almost all of them were injured. There were countless broken limbs floating on the surface of the lake, and countless painful cries came from the crowd. The sheriff was treating the wounded when he suddenly received a call from his son Jamie. Only then did I learn that the 3 children who were supposed to stay at home actually secretly ran with their friends to play. At this time, he was staying on a remote lake, and the sheriff immediately ordered his son to hurry up and take his younger siblings home. Jamie was just perfunctory. He didn't take his mother's words seriously at all. The sheriff obviously knew what virtues his son had, and he was even more panicked in his heart. So he took his colleague Nick and rushed out, and at this time the people on the cruise ship were not aware of the danger. Still happy loud carnival. When the paraglider fell into the water, the woman was still in the water of enjoyment. Suddenly, she seemed to feel something in the water. Who knew that in the next second, the woman was so frightened that she screamed. Her companion thought she was shouting in the wind, but when the paraglider rose again, the woman has been bitten in half. And at the same time, the children on the boat also saw something I had never seen before in the bottom observation window of the ship. So I didn't die. The sightseeing boat hit the shore corner at this time, and a large amount of seawater poured into the cabin. The 2 people on the boat also accidentally fell down, and in just an instant, the woman was eaten by a school of piranhas. The man was frightened, so he could only quickly surface, and when his companions worked together to splash her onto the boat, the lower half of the man's body was only white, and the water in the cabin was getting more and more. The children ran out smartly, leaving only the dizzy Mei Mei, and when she found out that the situation was not right, piranhas have already drilled in. As the water level continues to rise, Xiao Mei can only climb up to a high place. Nick tried to rescue his friend from the sunroof, but even with his best efforts, he couldn't break the sunroof. Fortunately, the sheriff arrived in time, but unfortunately, it was full of reefs and the yacht could not get close at all, so the sheriff found a bundle of rope and threw the other end to Jamie. And when both sides of the rope were tied, a life passage was set up, and the sheriff crawled along the rope to the opposite side. He was relieved to find that his 3 children were safe and sound, but Jamie told him that there was still a person trapped in the cabin. But the damn skylight wouldn't open at all, and the sheriff tried to do so. It seems that you can only enter through the hatch. But this place is already full of schools of piranhas. Wanted to pass between them at all. The sheriff had to take everyone to evacuate first. Wait and come back to figure it out. But when they crossed the rope, the accident happens again. The 4 desperately crawled along the rope, not realizing the woman's long hair had stirred the spring water, attracting piranhas to her blood. Despite her struggles, the numerous ferocious fish dragged her under, devouring her in seconds, leaving only foam behind. The sheriff comforted the 2 children ahead, assuring their safety if they held tight to the rope. Fortunately, the kids' strong will allowed them to climb to safety using their hands and feet. Just as the sheriff neared, the opposite rope snapped, plunging him into the sea as well. Luckily, Nick acted fast, tightening the rope after starting the yacht, narrowly saving the sheriff's life. But when Jamie's turn came, he tied the rope around his waist, determined to rescue Mei trapped in the cabin. Approaching his dear brother, he apologized before tossing his half-eaten body into the sea. Smelling blood, the piranhas swarmed out. Jamie seized the moment and dove in. Seeing Mei unharmed, they embraced, both knowing time was short. He quickly told Nick to pull them out in 15 seconds. Jamie dove again, opening all gas valves and grabbing a flare from the firebox. Ready? They held their breath at the hull's bottom. But the yacht wouldn't start, and Jamie, unsure why, threw in the flare. Worse, the fish finished eating their friend and turned towards the pair. The 2 above frantically searched for the problem to no avail. At the critical moment, the yacht finally started, the flare failing to light simultaneously. A massive blast barbecued the piranhas, successfully rescuing Jamie and Mei. But amid their celebrations, the sheriff received a call from the professor. The sheriff looked grim. Did the professor mean these deadly piranhas were just babies? So, are we their parents?